This is a Culture Inject production.
All right, welcome back, listeners. This week we are excited to deep dive into all things Lucy Pearl, but before we do that, we want to remind you of where you can download episodes of this podcast. You can access all episodes of Part of Us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Amazon Music. And make sure you follow us on all of our socials at Part of Us Fancast on Twitter and En Vogue Craze on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. All right, but before we jump into all of the Lucy Pearl, let's do a little bit of catch up. It looks like our ladies have been up to a couple of things since our last episode. Namely, they popped up in a Instagram post that had Cindy and Terry doing a little bit of voiceover kind of vocal work. What do you all think this is for?
I have no idea, but I'm sure it'll be interesting.
It definitely it was giving like a transition on an album, or like I can't, or like a voiceover for like a tribute something. I don't know. It didn't seem like it was a big deal.
It sounded like one of those, like if you ever go to like PBS and they're doing like oldies from like the 80s or something, and it's like they're reminiscing on like old artists.
Similarly, the ladies recently were on the 2024 Soul Train cruise, and this go round they had a few updates. There were some new costumes and props, some updated choreography, and some new songs added to their old school medley, including a song by the Pointer Sisters.
Ooh, we love
Any
that.
thoughts on the evolution of the performance? Any thoughts?
I always just love seeing the ladies, but I love the Pointer Sisters thing. That's really cool. They're Oakland foremothers.
I do like when they. I always appreciate when they do when they pay tribute to those who came before, specifically girl groups, and so I think it's a nice touch whenever they can like incorporate some of that into the show.
You'll have to ask everyone what their favorite album is next time.
You're not a Pointer Sisters fan, Josh?
I just have not done the due diligence of like really deep diving into Pointer Sisters like discography, so I feel like I am as familiar as somebody would be who listened to the radio, like, but not like I couldn't tell you deep cuts. I couldn't tell you like best vocal moments or anything like that. Like, but in all honesty, like I'm enough of a music nerd that I would probably really enjoy doing it. I just have to make the time for it. I really like sort of deep diving into one artist in like one time, but it hasn't happened yet. So maybe soon.
My freshman year of college, I was buying like a Pointer Sisters Greatest Hit CD, and all my friends thought I was like insane. Like, what is wrong with you? Why are you listening to these old ladies?
Well, and I guess like people, I don't know, like just to go Pointer Sisters for a second, weren't the Pointer Sisters like the first, like in the sort of Beyonce country album talk? Like,
yes,
weren't they the first to really of do some things in the country space?
First women to win a Grammy, right?
For Fairy Tale, and the first black women to sing at the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't get. I feel like that wasn't enough of the talking point. We saw a lot of like conversation about those who are coming up now, but like not enough about like those who are maybe around before. I think they rightfully, because she heavy-handedly referenced folks like Linda Martell and that kind of stuff, like, but I actually thought it would have been interesting if she had done like a cover of Fairy Tale. That would have been intriguing to me. Maybe En Vogue should do a country album.
I could
or not. We're not going down that
so you
road.
didn't like Cowboy Carter, huh?
I'm irritated with her in general.
So listener letters. We do have a couple of listener letters though. And we'll start with Haley. Haley says, "Hi everyone. So happy that you guys are back. And I just wanted to let you know that I enjoy the new format, aka the new team. So glad that Josh and JP are still here, and welcome Quentin. I'm feeling the more laid back, kind of deeper and more factual approach, and I liked that you guys revisited Dawn's departure from that perspective. Looking forward to what's to come from you all. The planned episodes sound interesting. Take care. Thanks, girl.
Not deeper and more factual. What?
Because we would rant and rave on these previous seasons with zero facts.
We would have facts, okay? They were just very colorful.
Okay, touching on a previous episode, at Carolinisha on YouTube asked, I'm curious, does Quentin have a kind of ideal sequence in mind that would have Let It Flow better on the EV3 album?
Well, hi, thank you for asking the question. I don't know, did we talk about the flow of EV3? Maybe we did, I can't remember. But I
think we did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe I excluded that song. I like that song very much. I kind of always felt like that was their Tony tribute.
No, I think she's asking, how would you have sequenced the EV3 album?
Oh, how would I have sequenced
so that it would have flowed better.
Oh, goodness. Gosh.
Oh, I get it. Okay. Thank you for breaking that down, because I did not read it that way.
My hard copy are in my bedroom, I can answer that very quickly. Let me just pull up the track listing. So we're looking at all 15 tracks. That includes the international and Japanese pressings. The only songs that I would definitely exclude from this record would be Eyes of a Child. And I would probably flip this around to open with Don't Let Go Love, whatever. I've Got Your Gun. Let It Flow will probably sit somewhere in the middle of the album, which is kind of where it already is now at track 7. So I love this album. It's my favorite En Vogue album, but I just can't place the sequencing, my imaginary sequencing in my mind. But yes, we love Let It Flow. And I own 2 copies of the album. I own a standard copy and the Japanese pressing, so I've got all the bonus tracks. So, but definitely I think that I would like to open strong with Don't Let Go Love, whatever. Let It Flow would stay in the middle, and I would actually like to close it on Does Anybody Hear Me? I think that's a perfect closer. I think that a cappella sparse closer would have been would have been a perfect closer for the record, I think, which it was on the on the standard copy. I'm always thinking of the Japanese one in my head, because that's the one I play the most. Because I'm obsessed with all 3 of those songs. I've Got Your Gun. It's about love and keep your money. So most of us love En Vogue and their experimental bag. So
well, alrighty then.
No, I'm giving to Art. JP loves you have a very, very broad perspective, and you always get me to think about things in a different way, which I appreciate.
Likewise.
Yay!
Because I did listen to What a Difference a Day Makes and Love Makes You Do Things.
Oh, I love those songs.
And have thoughts and opinions changed?
Well,
it's okay to
say that they're great songs and you like them.
No,
they're great songs.
I didn't say great. I would say they've grown on me. I will say that.
Well, it's a process. When you revisit them again, maybe they'll be even a little bit more pleasing to the ear. Our next email comes from Romello. Hey, gentlemen, it's Romello. Wanted to provide some commentary and feedback on some of y'all's recent episodes. And we got a list. Okay. Number 1. In regards to the Soulflower deep dive y'all did a couple of weeks ago, did you know that Dawn and Max were asked to return for the Soulflower era, but declined? The group did an interview with the Touré Show back in 2018 and briefly touched on this revelation. Terry mentioned that upon Amanda's abrupt departure during the Soulflower sessions, both she and Cindy kindly asked Dawn and Max to return for the Soulflower project, only for them to say no. So Rona basically was a last-minute addition. Did y'all know this?
Yes. I've heard that interview.
Yes. It's a great interview, actually. It was one of the more, I think I talked about this before, but I thought it was one of the more it got a little deeper than most interviews with them sometimes get. So I appreciated that. Specifically when they talked about, when Touré was asking about Cindy's voice and she was sort of talking about her own insecurities with her own voice. I thought that was really fascinating. So number 2. To piggyback off of the previous point, if you think about it, the Soulflower era really lasted from 2004 to 2007 or 8-ish, right before Dawn's return. With that being said, at least we can say Max was part of the group during that time. This was the first time we saw the group back at quartet status with EV4 2.0. There's even a couple of articles I read from several years ago that mentioned that there was an album produced with that particular lineup that was slated for release in 2007, I believe. And number 3, something I noticed. Why have we never seen EV4 1.0, Cindy, Dawn, Max, and Terry, or EV Now, Cindy, Rona, Terry, perform Too Gone Too Long? I've heard both the original lineup, the Night of the Proms lineup, and the current one both perform Whatever, Riddle, and Ooh Boy, so why not Too Gone Too Long? Enjoy the episodes and keep doing what y'all are doing.
That's a good question. If there's, I noticed for like a lot of artists that, you know, are nostalgia acts, they always have songs that were technically like they did okay on the charts, but they still never performed them. It's like Janet Jackson, like she never does like Because of Love or I Want You or something. But I think they probably just don't perform it because it just wasn't one of the songs that people think of when they think of En Vogue. It wasn't a song that really made an impact. But I think it would be nice to add it in.
Well, Janet, did she do Because of Love on the Number Ones tour? I could have swore there was one of those where she pulled out a few deep cuts, but it's only been in the last, well, this most last tour, the Together Again tour from last year, and I know she did some stuff for State of the World, but yeah, I don't think she's done I Want You. I would die if she did I Want You. I literally wouldn't be here today if she did I Want You live. I would like just cease. I would just explode because I love that song. Right? But anyway, but she did do Spending Time with You, and I did die in 2017 when she did that. But the point is, I actually would hope that this is a question that someone can ask them sometime and ask them what they and their music director decide to put together with their set list, because as JP says, you know, obviously they've got the nostalgia part where they're doing like their known hits, but obviously they've done stuff from the new record and they might throw in a curveball here and there depending on the crowd. But because they have such a great catalog, they could fold some lesser known gems in alongside the hits and it wouldn't take away from the hits. So maybe it's just one that they just don't think about, but I've always thought it was pretty.
I loved that song when it came out, but that song it has aged so poorly with me. Like, I loved that song when I first got the EV3 CD. Like, that was on constant play. I was like in a Diane Warren chokehold. And now when I listen to it, it's like, oh God, this is horrible.
I think it's just because, like, it is the big ballad moment of the late 90s, early 2000s with the, like, you know, My Heart Will Go On. And, like, you know, I think it's a big song. Like, it's a big song. And so I just don't know that, like, unfortunately, I don't know that audiences, like, now, I think they resonate with those hits, but I don't know that they necessarily want to hear that if it wasn't the blockbuster hit.
Right.
You know?
Like, it can't be like Break My Heart unless it has to be like.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Even though I think the song is, like, really beautiful and they sang down on it, and all the like performances from the era when it was released are really, really great. So I feel like they're capable. I just think that they're like, it's like the wild card that they just sort of kind of push to the side.
And they have another Diane Warren song. What was the one from the Why Do Fools Fall in Love soundtrack?
No Fool No More.
No Fool No More.
Yeah.
I don't think they've performed that since they did it on Oprah.
I think you gotta sometimes train your audience to be receptive to both things. I think one of my favorite artists who does that really well is Kylie Minogue. I think in the live context, I think she's learned, like, obviously she knows how to give certain crowds what they want, but I don't think she's ever shortchanged herself as an artist. So I think she finds ways, her and her music director, Steve Anderson, to fold stuff in. So you get those big hits, but then she'll surprised. Like, I think it was with the La Fallas tour in 2011 in support of Aphrodite, and after this, you know, she had done a new song from the album Love at First Sight with Can't Beat the Feeling. I think it was a mashup, and then she ends with doing a B-side, her cover of Prefab Sprouts If You Don't Love Me, which is the flip to Confide in Me. Out of nowhere, she had to perform that song since she was on MTV's Most Wanted in like 1995. Like, Only like real hardcore Kylie fans knew it, but she had this whole, like O2 Arena people like in rapture, just her sitting on the stairs singing it with the piano. And it was great. And it didn't take anything away from the larger hits or the new material she was doing at that time. So I think En Vogue, if anyone's capable of doing that, En Vogue is. I think they've got the talent, they've got the material, and I think they could make it work.
I feel like they. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it depends on the reason why you're touring. Like someone like Kylie Minogue, she seems to tour because she wants to like express herself artistically in that way and to really, connect with her fans. En Vogue, when En Vogue tours, to me, it just kind of seems like we got to eat. You know what I'm saying? Like this is how we put food on the table. So I think when you have that added pressure, or it's like when you're touring for survival mode, I think you're just like, give these people the hits that they know. And let's keep it moving. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a little bit kind of what I was thinking about was like the types of shows they're doing now. And so not all, but a good chunk of shows usually end up being like shared billing. So they're either like doing a cruise where they're one of a bunch of acts, or they're doing like these kind of like one night only style, like, 5 different R&B acts on the bill, that kind of thing. And I feel like when you have that as those audiences, I feel like you gotta just churn out the greatest hits. Like it's over and over and over again. But if they were able to really sort of do more like shows by themselves where they're the centerpiece, I think they could probably creatively really explore a whole lot more, and have a little bit more fun with it.
There's so many different ways where you can fold stuff in, like you said, that won't undercut, like obviously them touring because they need to tour with them digging in their you could do like a little medley, even just an opening measure. People would probably lose their stuff if they just opened with like an instrumental of something and then went into a hit. There's all different types of ways to work those things around, and I think that's what it really depends on the imagination of the artist and the music director, which is not to say they don't have it. I just think that maybe there's all that, because they were performing Electric Cafe, I think, when that record was out, that material alongside the hits, so because I think you get stale and probably get bored if all you're doing is just singing just old stuff. So I think that's one of the reasons that was probably one of the things they wanted to do when they did Electric Cafe. But let's see what the future holds.
Well, If anyone's listening, I want to hear "Damn, I Want to Be Your Lover." So Terry, dust off those pipes.
We can make that'll be that should be one of the future episodes, should be like us creating our own set lists. Cause that would be really interesting. I love when an artist also, and Kylie did this too, but like when she did the B-sides,
the
sort of
anti-tour
touring moment,
the anti-tour,
yeah, like I thought that was so clever because I think it was an opportunity to engage deeper with people who who really like love your stuff, like, or I think people who maybe were unfamiliar and still found themselves there probably knew that they were going to be open to something that maybe they weren't as familiar with. And so I wish more artists would do stuff like that, because so often us as fans have to go to shows. Like that's why I don't really do Vegas shows too often, because I feel they oftentimes are really just like tourist things for greatest hits things, and I want to, that's what I liked about the Janet shows. She would sneak something in every now and then, and I'd be like, okay, she knows it's for the fans, like the hardcore Jan fam.
But see, everyone in the audience is coming to see her. Like you said, to your point, like on some of the shows that En Vogue have been doing, they're with TLC or Sean Kingston, Nelly. It's like, you got to give the people what they know.
New Kids on the Block, like, these are folks that they just want to hear the top 10s.
So future episode, we're going to create our set list. No, I love creating set lists. Like I have so many playlists of like in my mind of like how a concert should go. Like I love a playlist. So.
All right. Well, thanks, Romello, for that letter. Hopefully you got all of your statements responded to, and we're about to jump into today's episode, which is all about Lucy Pearl. So why does Lucy Pearl deserve an episode, you may ask? Lucy Pearl represents a micro-evolution of R&B music in the early 2000s and represents an interesting chapter in Dawn's story post En Vogue. Many expected Dawn to release a solo album following her departure from En Vogue. Probably Dawn did too. But instead opted to join another group, surprising many.
Dawn's departure from En Vogue and then joining Lucy Pearl was significant in her career, not only because it represented her first venture post En Vogue, but also because, true to the pattern of many of Dawn's endeavors, it concluded amidst turmoil and discord. Understanding the reasons behind her move and examining her role in shaping Lucy Pearl's identity makes for an interesting discussion.
Bringing together three powerhouse players and creating a unique and innovative sound for the group helped set them apart from the contemporary acts, and they made a lasting impact on R&B culture in a very short period of time.
In short, recording this episode allows us to look deeper into their story, which really captures how music evolves. People reinvent themselves, and collaborating can help bring out the best in a person. So first we're going to go into the origins of Lucy Pearl. The genesis of the group stemmed from a shared desire to explore new musical territories and push the boundaries of traditional R&B. Initially, Raphael Saadiq reached out to Ali to explore the possibility of working together on a new project. Recognizing the potential synergy between their respective musical backgrounds, they embarked on a quest to put together a lineup that would bring their vision to life. Thus enters Dawn. Fast forward to May 2000, a year after the group formed, and Lucy Pearl drops their debut self-titled courtesy of Beyond Music. Their lead single, Dance Tonight, dropped, climbing the charts and snagging a Grammy nom for Best R&B Performance. By August, their album had already gone gold.
But just when things are heating up, plot twist, Robinson bows out in October. But Lucy Pearl's not ready to call it quits. By November, they're back in action on BET's 106 & Park, introducing their new recruit, singer Joy.
In an interview with MTV Radio Network in 2000, Saadiq shared the backstory of the group's name, recalling,
I just wanted to say something different. I don't know. We were just chilling one night. I was like, Lucy Pearl. I'm used to dealing with names. I came up with the Tonys and all of the titles for the Tonys albums. I always try to come with something that's going to be different for our listeners and kind of like old and new. That's what we came up with, and we stuck with that. People thought we were going to be called Disciples of Soul at first, and we think the soul thing is kind of like tired. Not soul music, but the word itself. For Dawn, Lucy Pearl offered an opportunity to be actively involved in creative decisions, something she found lacking during her time with En Vogue. Quote, with En Vogue, our producers had the tracks ready for us. I never saw musicians. To watch the process with Lucy Pearl was really amazing. When you're the only girl in the studio, it gives you a thicker skin and makes you a better writer. Try to go back to 2000 in your mind, folks. What was your initial impression of Lucy Pearl's music when you first listened to them? Did you like the group, and were you fans?
I mean, the first song was Dance Tonight. It was like a smash. I was shocked that Dawn was in this group. And I was confused yet excited. What a time.
It was just a great time, I think, in popular music. And I think it was one of the last times. I mean, we still have supergroups today that are still fantastic. So I don't want to just paint things through a rose-colored glass. It's like nothing's good now. But I think at that time, I think through the 90s and probably the first half of the 2000s, like right before 2006, I think that was just in every genre, all these different acts were just creating different things. And I think in the R&B and, soul and hip hop and black pop and sort of black dance music spheres, there was a lot of exciting energy. And just to see these three disparate sort of talents come together, Ali Shaheed Muhammad from A Tribe Called Quest, who, had done all this great stuff on the production side and that kind of stuff, who was, the quieter member. So that was great to see him in there. To have Dawn, who was more extroverted, but she had, I think, the space to explore different parts of herself, both visually and musically, in a way, because she was in a different group dynamic and also down by one, so it was only three of them. And then obviously Raphael Saadiq, I mean, my God, writer, producer, musician, who had just done so much great stuff on his own. I think the Ray Ray album, I don't know if that had come out yet. I think that might have still been 2 years away. But obviously his stuff with Tony. My father had House of Music. When I was coming up, that I couldn't get away from that record. And I say that in a good way, so for me, I was in high school and, Dance Night was a part of that. It was a staple of the period. It just was a great song. It was a hit. but it was a substantive hit in the fact that it wasn't just something that, oh, it's commercial. It's only good because it's commercial. Like it was a commercial hit because I think it deserved to be.
Yeah, I would agree. I think like I remember being intrigued because of the supergroup sort of model, and I think we had seen like big powerhouse collaborations before, but like the idea of like forming a whole group together was really interesting to me. And then the music was just good. It was really good. Like to come out swinging the way that they did, I thought it was just really smart. And it felt like it was of substance. It didn't feel like it was sort of, we're going to play on the individual star powers that we both carry, or the notoriety that we both carry, or we all carry individually, and just sort of make something. It actually felt like it was thoughtful and like good, which was refreshing.
It was collaborative. It was truly collaborative. I think all three people came together on that project.
For sure.
Well, has your perception of the group's music evolved over time?
I think it's fallen out of my like it's not been a priority for me to listen to it oftentimes. So like I feel like I come back to it, but then when I'm not actively like listening to it, it might slip away. So like it's not like I'm constantly grabbing for it, but when I do, it just feels good. So like they struck gold, and I feel like it just was one of those like things that just can't be replicated again. So like that feels steady over the years for me. How good it is and how it should have lasted longer.
You know what's interesting? I loved Dance Tonight when it came out. I thought Don't Mess With My Man, which was the second single, I mean, I thought it was cool. I liked it because it featured Dawn, but I thought it was random. But I never got into the album because I think they were broken up before I had a chance to like buy the album. And so over the years, when I first heard that album, I was like, well, I don't like this at all. But sometimes I know, like with my opinions, I need time to sit on things. I need to come back to it and just, listen from a different perspective.
Like the EV3 album tracks. Yes. Okay. We working on them 20 something years later.
Okay. But the last few years, I love that Lucy Pearl album now. It's like, I think it is so good. It's so like fresh. It still sounds good to me. And I do think it's kind of a travesty that we did not get more of that. So I guess my perception has definitely changed for the better. What did you guys think of the name Lucy Pearl? I know I was confused. I was like, what is happening?
I mean, it's good to know that it didn't really mean anything, because I think that we were all searching for the meaning. Like when you hear something like Lucy Pearl, it's like, is that somebody's mama or grandmama, or like what is the significance? But it's nice to hear that like it was just sort of made up. But I kind of like names like that. I like things that like I really like Danity Kane, or like these random things that don't really have any sort of like meaning behind them until they apply the meaning to it afterwards or something. But I thought it was intriguing. I think it's one of the like things that makes it feel a little bit more classic. I don't know. And maybe that's like weird, but I find the name to be kind of like classic sounding versus they could have been like, I don't know, the Superstar Project or something really like, self-serving and vanity kind of driven, or initials or something, So I like it. It's kind of cool to me even still.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that wonderful sort of creative serendipity where the artist allows the audience to project their meaning and affection onto an interpretation of the name. And then obviously they can sort of do stuff on the back end to sort of build up on that mystique if they want to. But that's one of the fun things about, I think, some art from different periods. Even now, when you can allow an audience to sort of, in good faith, put that kind of energy onto it. And because I think the project was so positive, and because it was so cool and kind of funky, and it was alternative, but again, it wasn't inaccessible to the mainstream. It was something where I think it was, it just felt collaborative. I think that just the title of the name, it really, just like the music and the project itself, it was all collaborative. And I felt like they were in collaboration with their audience and really were inviting them along for the ride to be like, hey, what's Lucy Pearl mean to you? What are your thoughts on Dawn's decision to join another group instead of pursuing a solo career after leaving En Vogue? Do you think this choice may have impacted perceptions of her ability to succeed as a solo artist, either by suggesting she lacked confidence in her own talents or by distancing herself from the spotlight for too long?
I actually think it was like a genius move for her to join another group after En Vogue. It would have been even better if it lasted a little longer. But I think the idea of, like, because there's this narrative that, oh, Dawn wanted to be their solo star. She left the group to pursue a solo career, and she pops out in another group. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, well, someone's lying. Like, something's not true here. So I think, it was I don't know if that was her reason for doing it or not, but it ultimately, I think, is smart from a audience perception point. But I just wish, they could have lasted a little bit longer. Because I think in this situation, she still came out looking like a diva. But if anyone's followed Raphael Saadiq, then, she's met her match as far as being a diva.
I feel like I do wonder if that was like the intention post leaving En Vogue. Like, I think this is all conjecture, but I do think she probably would have, seems like she would have been leaving that group and trying to position herself for a bigger solo moment before she went back into a group. I have a hard time believing she thought that going back into a group was the best next step for her, but maybe I'm wrong. But either way, I think like it was an unexpected choice for sure. But I think even the aesthetic sort of shift, like from, I think everything felt like an evolution of sorts. And so that was what kind of made it intriguing, was it felt like, okay, this is not just her bouncing to another girl group. This is her doing a whole different type of group. And that was what I think kind of worked for her. I think it worked to her benefit to do that. But to your point, I do think like not having it last as long, regardless of who did what, still kind of reads a particular kind of way on, the public. So I think it kind of burned her in the end to say like, you've now like not lasted in two groups, or you've not stayed with two groups. And that, I think, is just not a great look.
I think Dawn, what I find frustrating about her is that she is a brilliant woman creatively, but I think sometimes she gets in her own way. So there had been a lot of things that had been put out about her departure from En Vogue, and everyone who's listening to the podcast knows that. And I mean no disrespect to Miss Robinson by bringing it up, but I think so when she left, I think there was a bit of heat on her to prove like, okay, well, you're so big and bad, can you do it on your own? And Lucy Pearl was almost sort of unintentionally rehabilitative, because I think she said, you know what, let me just throw off the shackles of the idea I have to go solo in the conventional sense and do something that really speaks to me artistically. And I think when she let the music speak, when we look at Lucy Pearl in terms of how it was perceived before it, imploded, I think it helped to rehabilitate her image initially, publicly, because it showed that Dawn was an entity who brought something singular to En Vogue, and then she could stand on her own and make the decision, both business-wise at the time and creatively, to pair with two other people who were effectively peers of hers, or in terms of peers of the period, and make something really collaborative. But then again, and this is not to say that anything that she said was right or wrong, or anything that Raphael said was right or wrong. I'm going to kind of take Ali's sort of neutral Luxembourg, Switzerland approach, and just say that unfortunately when it imploded, because of those pre-existing optics, it sort of brought that stuff back to the surface and almost reverse engineered the rehabilitation that Lucy Pearl had done for her. And then for her to go into her solo project and then to lead with a song, unfortunately, because I haven't heard the record in a long time. I don't own my copy. I need to buy one. But to lead with something like Envious, the optics of that coming off of like two where you, for whatever reason, you weren't able to suss it out or make it work. Not that it should all be on Dawn's shoulders. It just didn't look great. And it makes me sad, because I don't think she's ever really recovered from either of those things, personally or professionally. She's kind of been stuck. Whereas Ali and Raphael have continued to work. En Vogue has continued to work. and create. And it's a shame. I'm hoping that eventually she'll be able to get back to something creative. I know she's got a memoir I think she's worked on, but something that's separate from her rehashing sort of the traumas of En Vogue and Lucy Pearl. But I think the album was, to be a more succinct answer, I think the record actually was a boon to her. I do think it really was sort of, it really proved that she could do it on her own and do it in a holistic, sort of interesting, creative way. So it's just a shame that we didn't get to see more.
And I mean, to be fair, I think like even with like, she can still say that out of all of the ladies, she's had the most sort of solo success, or success separate of the group, like musically. So I think like, from a legacy perspective, this was a beautiful moment on her career until it didn't, last anymore, until it went sour. So.
And also, I think from following her all these years later, it feels like that was the most like authentically her. You know what I mean? Like it felt like the music that she was making with Lucy Pearl, it just seems like that's really more of who she is as opposed to, the glamorous diva.
Well, while Dawn's producers, Jake and the Fat Man, brought most of the rough demo songs to the group, Raphael Saadiq served as the driving force behind Lucy Pearl's creativity. His vision acted as the glue that transformed the band's raw ideas into fully realized songs. So let's maybe, dissect and take a look at the album and its tracks. So let's talk about the singles first. Like, can we talk about what you thought? You've already mentioned a little bit about Dance Tonight, but let's talk a little bit about what you all thought about Dance Tonight, but also Don't Mess With My Man.
Another Stone Cold soul, contemporary soul classic. I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, we love Dance Tonight. I think, and also the fact that it was from, wasn't it Love and Basketball? It was on the Love and Basketball soundtrack.
Yeah.
And that was such a big moment, a big movie in the culture, and having that song be a part of it, it was really dope. It was Grammy nominated, and they lost to Say My Name, I believe. Which I feel was an injustice, but
that would have been really interesting if they won a Grammy off of it. That could have maybe they would have toughed it out a little longer.
Yeah. But Don't Mess With My Man, in hindsight, like now I really enjoy it. And at the time, I was just thinking, like, I'm not going to hear this on the radio. Like, they're not going to play, the same stations that played Dance Tonight are not going to play Don't Mess With My Man. But, I mean, I like the song a lot now.
But maybe that was the point.
Well, I mean, I think the point is to be successful.
But you can't, if you base everything, it's a business and you want to have a job that you love. But I think having a big single like Dance Tonight, I think they wanted to show the versatility of the band. And I think it was important for them to sort of deviate just a bit. And as you said, I think had the record, had they had more of a lifespan, they might have pulled another single. It might have been commercial single. They might have done like a hot potato and sort of alternate so that you could please both sides of their base. Because as I had mentioned, I think they had the alternative crowd over here and they had the mainstream crowd over there, and they had both. I think it's good to appeal to both sides of your audiences so everyone feels included. And that's probably why they serviced Don't Mess With My Man as a secondary single versus something that would have been a bit more appropriate chart-wise.
I always felt like they put out Don't Mess With My Man because it was a solo Dawn record. And I think as the female in the group, of course, she's going to get the attention. Like, she's the pull. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, she's the center focus. To me, it just seemed like they wanted a Dawn record. Like, the label wanted a Dawn record, and they just went with that. Because that just seems like such a random choice. Like, I can't see Raphael Saadiq being like, yeah, I want that to be the second single.
Well, even if that's the case, wouldn't that be but that's a shrewd choice then, wouldn't you say, if that was the case? So, I mean, and that's what I mean. I think it's interesting. This is something I would love to ask them about. I'd love to ask Ali, Dawn, or Raphael, what was the thinking behind them picking that? If there was anything, it may not have been anything at all. It's just interesting. Dawn has always been a beautiful lady, and she's always had a magnetic presence, so I'm sure that didn't hurt.
I am team Good Love for the second single. Like those who get it, get it.
It's a great song. I like it.
I don't know if it would have been my second single, but it's a great song. I actually really like Don't Mess With My Man. I think it's tough for me to go back and imagine how I heard it and how I processed it back then, because I think I do listen to that song fairly often, and I really like it now, and like how the music listener that I am now. And so I really wish I could like tap back into like, how did I feel when I heard this? Was I like, what is this? Or was I like, oh, this makes sense? Because I do think it is very different sonically, or it's different enough sonically than Dance Tonight. That some people might have been like, okay, this feels, a little over there. But I mean, I went back and rewatched the video and I was just like, oh, I never saw the video enough. And so watching the video now, I'm like, wow, I really would have been in love with this if they had just like looped the hell out of this on like MTV or something. Like, so it's just, I don't know. It's the single that should have been bigger in my head.
Yeah, I really like this. I like the song a lot now. Like even then I thought the song was cool, but I just thought it's random. But I think had they been in a better position or more successful, or like if they had some heat behind them, I think that song probably could have been a hit. I think you have to build to that though. Like to your point about Beyonce and Irreplaceable, I mean, she was coming off of a huge era before that, a movie, like pop records. Like she already had heat behind her to say, okay, I'm going to do something like Irreplaceable, which I mean wasn't that far off of what everyone else was doing. But I just think when you have success, it can boost those like big shifts that you may want to make. You know what I'm saying? Like people will give you a level of grace versus if you've only had one hit and it's like, okay, now you're jumping out the window.
I think for this to be their debut as a group, they could have benefited perhaps from like a second single that felt a little bit more akin to Dance Tonight, and then gave us Don't Mess With My Man. Cause I mean, this was also the era where people put out 3-4 singles off of an album. Plus, like, I would like to have seen them work this album way longer. Cause there's just a lot of really beautiful songs, that folks don't really know unless they really, really were in tune with the album as a whole.
Does anyone have any favorites? I don't think we need to go track by track unless you guys want to, but are there any standouts for you guys?
The aforementioned Good Love that JP mentioned is one I like. Every Day. Can't Stand Your Mother, La La, and I'm looking at my copy here. The track with Snoop Dogg and Q-Tip is great.
I think Every Day might be my favorite Lucy Pearl song. Like, and it's somewhere on if I was to do like a top 100 songs or something, it would be somewhere in there. I just like, that has a song that has grown with me as an adult. So I really, really love that song. I also agree, La La, Good Love, Can't Stand Your Mother. It's actually a really great first half, like with no skips to me, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't think there's many skips, or I can't really think of any skips. Towards the end, we lose a lot of Dawn in the end for me. So I don't know what was going on there, but I kind of like this. I mean, she's still there in a lot of it, but that first half, that sort of run between Lucy Pearl's Way through like Without You, Don't Mess With My Man is really just like standout, stellar for me. Yeah, I don't really have much criticism. I just have to say I love the intro, the Lucy Pearl's Way, and like how they allude to their like past lives. I think that's really clever. I like how the lyric that Dawn repeats is "Don't let go, hold on." Like it's very like, it's heavy handed a little bit, but like I kind of like think it's like funny that she's like singing En Vogue lyrics reinterpreted in a different way on a different album with a different group. And meshing these worlds together. I thought that was really, really fun. And And then they bring it back at the end, which I thought was kind of fun too. So it's just a beautifully thought out album for sure.
You can tell they really took their time with it.
And it's like, I mean, it's really full. It's like it's a heavy, like heavy as in like it's not, 8 songs, 2 interludes, and then you're done. Like it's got a lot of music on there to play around with and listen to. I will say, I don't like you. I am. That's the one part. That's the one song I'm not.
I
really
don't mind
like.
that one, but it's because Q-Tip is on there mostly. He's very cute, but but I do like him on there. One of the references to try, because there's as you mentioned in Lucy Pearl's Way, there's a sample of Electric Relaxation in there, which is a Tribe Called Quest staple from Midnight Marauders. But yeah. Well, I guess now I've been shamed into of liking you. No, I'm just kidding. You didn't shame me.
That's your song. That's your song.
I'll swap out that one for Hollywood.
I can always count on you to pick the song that is just enough out of what most people would really run towards. Because most people, it's interesting. Hollywood is definitely a heavier kind of rock alternative moment. And it is to me, it's the outlier on the album. It's the thing that I think most people would say they skip. I can't say that fully, but like, I always know Quentin's gonna like that one song that most people would say that they skip. I love it. I just also have to bring in, like, really quickly, I love Without You. And I don't know if y'all have watched the video for that, but it is really shady because there is a video and it's without Dawn. Dawn had left at this point, and they tease Joy by showing like shots of a woman in the dressing room, and it's like a 5.5 minute long video or something. I don't know. And she finally emerges at the end. So it's just like this shady sort of introduction to Joy, who I love. Like, Joy is like one of my favorite artists.
She's a hallmark of that alternative thing I was just talking about.
Yeah. And to be fair, I actually would have really loved Lucy Pearl's continuation with Joy because she fits into it so well that I think they would have been able to like carry it on, but for whatever reason they didn't. But if there was going to be somebody to replace Dawn, having Joy jump in made complete and total sense. I also think she was pregnant at the time. But either way, the video is really, really interesting and kind of like a shady move in my opinion, because I also think Dawn is on the record on the album, but I feel like in the video, I don't hear her. So I don't know. Maybe I'm too distracted by the teasing of Joy throughout the video, but I do think it's a very Raphael Saadiq centered video. And then it sort of like brings in Joy as a bit of a like culminating moment. And she doesn't sing in it. So like, it's shady in that way to me, but it's worth watching. I don't think many people realize the Without You video exists, because I don't know how much traction it got, but it's on YouTube. So yeah, I would have really loved a Joy moment, or another album with Joy. That would have been really interesting.
I wonder if had she put out Amoeba Cleansing Syndrome yet, or Cleansing Syndrome, or had that been in the works? I know that, was something around the time.
She had, I think so, because after Lucy Pearl would have been
Star Kitty.
Yeah.
The Pendulum Vibe, her debut was a really, really one of those early great alternative soul records. That was a big influence on Madonna when she went into do Bedtime Stories. I think that because Dallas Austin worked on that record, didn't he? Yeah. And I think that's why she ended up pulling in Dallas Austin to work with her for that project, because that was an album that she was really into at the time. So Joy had the chops to follow someone like Dawn in that way.
And now that I look at it, Amoeba Cleansing Syndrome was literally Lucy Pearl was smack dab in the middle between when Amoeba Cleansing Syndrome happened, which was 1997, and then Star Kitty was 2002.
Okay, yeah.
So I think she was in a moment trying to figure out what to do next. So this kind of also made sense for her too, like to do a group moment. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she's like I think she's just like the hidden gem that most people should know. She doesn't have any misses for me. But anywho, so do y'all think that they're like, this was also, we have to contextualize this in the larger scheme of music at the time. And so we were in the middle of like a R&B neo soul sort of like moment in this 2000 era. Do you all think that Lucy Pearl, like this album, like had an impact on subsequent musical acts? Like, are we just sort of living in a bubble where it means so much to us? Or do you all think that this actually made impact within like music on other artists and such and such, you know?
I think maybe the song did, Dance Tonight, but I mean, when I hear people talk about neo soul and people have those conversations, I've never heard Lucy Pearl really be a part of the conversation, even though, I mean, they were there right at the, you know, like the peak of the neo soul movement at that point. It was, you know, a good moment for the genre, but I just never hear people reference this album.
It's so interesting because for me, I would say the same thing, but then I always wonder like what's not being said, but what's not being said, but is being listened to. Because there's an artist I love named Reese who released an album called How I Do. And it was, in the larger grand scheme of things, not really a massive success on like a sort of in a traditional way we would measure like success for an album. But it's kind of the thing that everybody, like, it's kind of everybody's favorite artist's favorite album, like on the low. Like it never really gets talked about in like a big sense, but I've seen like tweets about it. Like I actually tweeted about it and like there were just massive people being like, this was my shit. This was my shit. This was my shit. And I'm always like, oh wow, I never knew that. I assumed it was a flop. Like, and so I do wonder like the artists that we love that were listening the same way we were at the time, if that actually sort of made its way into what they were doing.
I always say this is why success is subjective, and I think people have to reframe how we look at it. You know, not everyone, to quote my lady, Miss Jody Watley, is going to be mega, or to paraphrase her rather. And I often think that you have stuff that's like on the surface, and this is not to dismiss your larger commercial successes because those have their place, but often it's the folks under the surface who are the currents. It's your Khalees's, it's your Joys, and even someone like, then you have those who fall in the middle, like a Brandy, who's had that big commercial success, but then she's had records that may not have been commercial hits, but you have people talking about them, like audiences or fellow artists. And I think Lucy Pearl is one of those records. Was Lucy Pearl a cornerstone of the neo soul movement in the way that Who Is Jill Scott or On How Life Is were, just to pull two albums out of a hat? No, but I do think it's a record that when you drill down on the period and you talk about stuff from that time, I've heard people talk about that record, like listeners, like I've had friends who talked about this record, record store clerks and different people. And I think, again, because of the fact that these three people were from three separate groups who meant so much to so many people in the 90s, and were shaping so much of not just Black popular culture, but broader popular culture at different intervals. And I think that's where they're unique, because you can't really think of a lot of supergroups from that time that were able to do what they did. I mean, they had a gold-selling record that was with a huge hit, a Grammy nomination, and the record was on an independent label distributed by a larger parent company, BMG. That says something. So the record struck a nerve with somebody. So I think it's one of those things, like this episode, the fact that we're having this conversation speaks to its importance, and the fact that there are other people who are going to hear this episode is going to extend its life long past us. And that's how I think legends in the real sense, or that sort of folkloric element, gets created, by just spreading it around and continuing to share. And I think particularly within the African American culture, that's very true with R&B and Black music, because there are so many different kinds of records that people will talk about that maybe someone won't know, but like your aunt's a fan, or your music teacher was a fan. So it's just interesting, and I think there's room for all that stuff. So,
and it was a gold record.
Yeah, success, like I said, I mean, Mega's great, but some of my and I have my Mega things. My favorite Spice Girls record is Spice World, but I go hard for that third album. I go hard for some of the lesser known solo records that came after the big ones. Like everyone loves Northern Star. Happy 25th to that album. But it's her second record, Reason, that I tend to go in for. That's my favorite album. And that's one that doesn't get talked about a lot. It kind of gets lost between her big major label debut and then her first independent record that became a big success in mainland Europe. So I think it's important to realize that. And then just to make it even more relevant, like, for example, all of the TikTok clatter noise aside, the new Jennifer Lopez record is a great example of that. Like everyone that I like from a word of mouth perspective, that people love that album. Like there's no one who has actually listened to that record who doesn't like it. And that's thing, like people who I've been talking to, like, wow, this record's really good, separate from all the noise. And that's what's so cool about music, is that it finds its own audience. And I think it's to the credit of Ali and Raphael and Dawn that they made this great record that continues to find audiences, decades later. I think that's they left everything they needed to on the wax.
I feel like that's what I love social media for, because I don't know how you all, like, everybody uses their accounts differently, but I love like lifting like music in particular that I feel like folks don't necessarily, is not on the tip of folks' tongues. And then I get such satisfaction when people are like, oh, there's people talking about this thing, I should listen to that. And like, that's just as important, I feel, as, a radio play, if not more, because I feel like when people fall in love with an album, they're gonna listen to it all the time. Mm-hmm. They're gonna bring it back in moments when it's needed for them. They're gonna, incorporate it into their special occasions and their playlists and their, whatever. I just think that there's something really lovely about, because I think I did tweet about before I guess it was last week when I knew we were gonna do this. I went back and listened to the album, and I just tweeted the album cover and the back cover, and I was like, oh, this is such a beautiful album still. And all these people were like, oh yeah. And then shout out to Champ was like, a former co-host of Part of Us. Champ was like, I've never listened to this album. And I was like, you need to listen to this album. I think you would really love it. And hopefully he did, because I think there's still people who would find a lot of appreciation and joy, and no pun intended, in the Lucy Pearl album.
I caught that. Go ahead, JP. I'm sorry. Go ahead, JP.
No, I was just going to say, I was thinking about how, like, I mean, most people would think of Lucy Pearl as like a neo soul act, right? Even though I'm sure that's not, the genre that they would have called themselves. But a lot of albums in that period, though, I think one of the reasons why it's probably not talked about in like a bigger way, it's because they didn't tour a lot with it. I remember Jill Scott saying, like, she toured with her first album for 3 years. Like, she was everywhere. Yeah. So that's why people regard that album as being so important, and she just had an anniversary tour for it last year. I think the fact that Lucy Pearl wasn't able to, like, really work the album and really, meet people and really go from city to city selling the album and performing the records, I think it loses some of the
its legs.
The hype, or the folklore of being talked about in such high regards, the way other albums from that era are.
And that's the thing I miss about now in music, to be quite honest, is I kind of miss what we would call traditional rollouts, where people, they do the circuit of press, and they do the performances here, there, and everywhere, and you wait to, watch and see where your favorite artist is going to be on television, and they do the award show performances, and you get multiple singles and videos. Like, I feel like we move along so quickly with music now that it's really hard for stuff to stick. And for an album like this to have only really had 2 singles and only really have been worked between May and October or something, I think it still says a lot that it's that good that we're still talking about it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. There's a quote, and I can't think of the guy's name on my Instagram in this moment. I don't want to scroll through to find it, but he put up a thing that I shared on my IG stories the other day, and it said, leave thoughtful comments on the art that you love. And that really stuck with me. And, Josh, you were relating about your story about putting that post up and how you just got this sort of groundswell of support and love. And I think, like you said, that the internet, that's when the internet, I think, is at its best, when it can connect people, where we can share things about art that we love, and the things that connect us to something bigger than ourselves, but also allows us to connect to things within ourselves as well. And, I hope that, wherever, whatever they're doing, Ali and Dawn and Raphael know that this record has touched people and the soundtrack lives, and it continues to find its way. And, it is a shame, as JP said, that the record didn't get the legs it deserved, because it was an album that did deserve a broader life, a broader commercial audience. But I think that also adds to its mystique a little bit.
For
that
sure.
It is kind of something that's just a little lost. Not totally, it's a little.
Oh, yeah. I think that is definitely part of its mystique. Like, I think that's actually a huge factor in why it resonates now, is that, like, it feels like the gem that most people may not remember, or they had it, or they experienced it in like a sliver, but they didn't get the full experience. And so that's something to rediscover for a lot of people. Like, a lot of people remember Dance Tonight, but they don't remember the rest of it. So, like, that's the beautiful thing now, is watching people be like, oh, there was more and I missed it.
I agree.
Okay, y'all. So we got to talk a little bit about when it all fell apart. So, there are lots of stories about why the group fell apart, or the challenges that they faced both internally and externally. I'm going to specifically name what Dawn attributes to her reason for leaving. And she explained she was doing her tour back in the pandemic when she was on her Instagram lives. And she basically said that the group was formed to do one album. And after the tour was complete, that they had already agreed to basically disband. And she also said that she didn't know that she was being replaced until being contacted by an interview with Rolling Stone. And then she saw Joy on stage on 106 in Park and was like, I guess I'm replaced. She also said that there was like jealousy between her, coming from Raphael Saadiq because of her, because of the sort of attention that she might have been getting as the woman in the group. And she also said that something about like Raphael's refusal to move forward with the release of the album in 99 caused her to lose her home. So there's just a whole lot of like elements and dynamics in the pot here as to why things might have went left. And that's just the stuff that Dawn's been saying about her and Raphael. She hasn't mentioned too much about Ali's, if there was anything there in that dynamic either. But what do y'all think about the mess?
Exhausting and slightly reductive, because my only thing with all of this is that you went on and on and on about contracts and En Vogue. So then you go into another group dynamic. You agree to this. You agree to something that is not for you. So that you have to take. I'm not disputing what she said might even be wrong, but it's like you have to take responsibility that you took a gamble, and it didn't pay off, and it didn't pay out the way you wanted it to. And I sure with Ali, I think because he had come from his own interpersonal dynamics and being sort of the quiet one with the dramatic stuff between the late great Phife Dawg and Q-Tip and Tribe, I think for him, he's always been the more neutral party. And then I don't doubt that Raphael definitely has some ego, because a man of his talents and his success is going to have it. So what you have is one neutral party, and then you have the unmovable force and the irresistible, or is it unmovable object, irresistible force, or whatever it is. And I think that's what's so funny. When we were talking about the commercial stuff earlier, I think a lot of Lucy Pearl, for better or for worse, was sort of done on the fly. And so it's amazing that they were able to sort of put together such an amazing project from the art to some of the business end and get some of the success that they got, given that it seemed to be very fly by the seat of your pants. And I think that's really what it came down to, is that things just weren't sorted out the way they needed to. Raphael, of course, could fall back on what he wanted to do. Ali lives a very chill life, so he could fall back on that. Whereas Dawn, I think, was probably in a more professional and creatively precarious place than her two male counterparts, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true.
Her signing a contract that she knew wasn't good is just...
It's exhausting.
And according to her, she had another deal on the table with, I think, RCA at the time. And it's like, so you're going to give up that to do this project? That is just wild to me. And what she said, I think I remember her saying in an interview, like, she trusted Raphael and just thought that, he would keep his word or make it right or whatever the case may be. But after getting out of one bad situation, like, why would you go into another one? But how many of us have gone from one bad relationship to the other? So.
I feel attacked. I feel triggered. No, I'm just playing. Well, I guess I wonder now. They've tried. You know, obviously, folks had careers after, right? So folks have been working. Dawn had her solo album come after. Obviously, Raphael Saadiq had a series of solo albums and continues to be this sort of prolific producer. And I'm assuming, I don't know too much about Ali, but I'm assuming Ali kept a job too. Like, he's been booked and busy.
And then Tribe did their final record 9 years ago, and then they just got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year.
Right. Oh, that's right. That's great. So, what I guess I say all of that to ask this question, which is, would you ever want to see them get back together and try to do another moment as Lucy Pearl?
I would love to.
I second that.
Because to me, it makes sense. Like, because they were in that kind of neo soul lane, those artists work forever. You know what I'm saying? They have their circuit, they tour. I just think it's such a missed opportunity for everyone involved, because they could.
And maybe Raphael's back in the spirit of that, because he clearly went back on the road with his first group. So
you mean Raphael Saadiq revisit
featuring or whatever? Yeah. Oh, did we talk about how he had you remember LaToya London from American Idol? He has her on that. I don't think that tour is done, but on that tour, she was the one doing the Dawn parts on the Lucy Pearl songs that they did. So, but apparently they were taking phones, so nobody got recordings of it because they made you like seal your phone or whatever. I really wanted to hear what that sounded like, but I too would like to hear and see a Lucy Pearl resurgence. You know.
Yeah, I think it would be. I mean, if I was Dawn, I would be like, "Hey, bro, like, I know I was tripping 20 years ago,
hey, big head.
I know I may have been tripping. You know, you can be in the center. It's all good."
I let the house thing go.
Let's let bygones be bygones. Like, come on, like, I would be.
But you know, even if that was the case, I feel like she did it 2020, because I mean, there were murmurs that they were going to try to do something in 2019, but she went on that Instagram tour, so I feel like she brought up a lot of stuff
she got
that I feel like maybe could have been buried. Again. Yeah.
Didn't he apologize to her or something?
I don't know. I didn't see that part.
I just don't think it's a shame. I just think that it's like she's just sort of stuck, and I wish her well, because I'm hoping that she can find a way out of the relitigation of things from the past to move forward, because she's too talented and bright of a spirit to sort of be stuck in that place. Because everybody else, all of her previous people, they're still making art and working. So, and I'd love them to do another record, especially now with the alternative R&B landscape, what it is today. Oh God, they could do anything. The sky would really be the limit.
Well, we hope that our listeners here on Part of Us will, if they have not already, they will further engage with this beautiful album and let us know what you think. If it's your first time listening to the Lucy Pearl album in full, then let us know what your favorite songs are, what's your favorite moments. If you're rediscovering it, or you're, you know, tapping back into it, pulling the album out of your collection, let us know what still sticks, and we can't wait to hear what you think. And most importantly, thank y'all for listening. Before we wrap up, we wanted to make sure that we gave a shout out to all of our listeners. We are gearing up for our next episode, which will be an all listener letter special. We want to hear from you, whether you have questions about music, want to share your favorite memories, just want to say hi. We're going to feature your letters on the show. So send us your thoughts, questions, and stories. All things EV. You can reach us via email, partofusevf@gmail.com and on social media, or however you prefer to get in touch. Please make sure you are subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast, and we will see you or listen for next time.
This episode of Part of Us at En Vogue Fancast was researched, written, produced, and edited by Matthew at Culture Inject Productions. We're more than just a podcast. We're a fan community. You can keep up to date on En Vogue and chat with other fans by visiting En Vogue Craze on Facebook. You can also follow us on YouTube and Instagram at En Vogue Craze and Twitter at Part of Us Fancast. Part of Us and En Vogue Fancast is not endorsed by En Vogue, E1 Music, or En Vogue Records, and is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. En Vogue and its names, images, and audio clips are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective copyright holders.
So I'm sorry you didn't like Cowboy Carter.
I listened to most of it. It was fine. I mean, it's the Beyonce album. I don't know. Like, to me, I think one of the things that annoys me about Beyonce sometimes is, like, on one hand, she's very like, you know, I want to represent this. I want to represent queer art and, you know, and on this one is over talking about Black country artists. And, like, how do you not acknowledge the Pointer Sisters on this album that's up? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're paying homage to Black country music and things of that nature. And, like, how do you miss that? You know what I'm saying? Or I don't know. I just feel like she's very performative sometimes.
I feel like it's a slippery slope, though, because I think this is on the flip side. The other critique I kept hearing was, well, why didn't she give these new girls more lines to sing on that song? Or why didn't she give... I mean, at the end of the day, but I think it's a Beyonce album. Like, if Beyonce gonna be the star, okay? And that's what I'm buying. I'm buying a Beyonce album for Beyonce.
There's a way to do a feature. Now, come on. Feature gets more than 2 bars. Like, it's just, I feel like, and I think even one of the girls said it, like, that was a last minute thing. It wasn't something that was done with thought. It was like, okay, there are a bunch of people, Black new artists that are trying to get into country. Let me throw them somewhere. You know what I'm saying? It's just very performative to me. And I hate her performative activism.
I'm going to leave it alone because I'm going to let the hive find you on the internet. Okay?
I hate it because
they're going to edit this.
I know how to lie. I know how to lock my tweets up.
I don't trust it. Ain't nothing getting edited out.